Welcome back into the Dynamis podcast this week, guys. We have a really cool guy, my close friend, Dillyn. The reason that I like Dillyn so much, I'm so attracted to Dillyn, and I think that most of you guys will be too, is because Dillyn lives life on his terms. He's an adventurer, an explorer, a scuba diver extraordinaire. Dillyn is just one of those interesting guys that knows how to live a full life and can scrap anything together to create the environment that he wants to live in and spend day to day. There's certain people you meet and right away you can just tell, like, dude, this guy has such a good heart. He's such a genuine and caring person and are just so admirable. And how you've built your little empire that continues to grow, you've done it in such a non-traditional way. So today we are going to talk all about goal setting, taking action towards those goals, the power of partnership and proximity, how to put yourself in the rooms with the right people. With that, Dillyn, welcome to the Dynamis podcast, my man.
Thank you so much, Tim. And what a good introduction. That gets me fired up. I'm like, oh yeah, I have done a lot of cool stuff. I am on a nice track, and it's good to hear from someone when you're just kind of living your life, doing your own things.
And I'm stoked to have you here. I think it's really easy when you're in the midst of it all to not see your wins, to not see your growth. I was just talking about this with another GoBro on the plane ride home from our meetup that we just got back from. And when you sit in a room with all these hustlers, these people that are just killing it, there's so many times where you just feel inadequate, right? You feel like, I don't deserve to be here. Like, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. He has a plan to do it. He's running a successful company. What the heck am I doing here? And I think it's so easy to lose yourself and feel almost buried. Like, you start to suffocate under the weight of that. But when you really step back and take a look at the journey, the playing field gets much more level.
That's about one of the most real concepts people don't recognize. And I learned greatly by being around the GoBundance guys is I, like most people, just feel like they haven't done enough or done anything. You get to know some of these people, all the great things they've done. It seems huge. What's been really cool about GoBundance and getting real intimate on the details is you find out they all share the same feeling. Like, guys with thousands of units are still like, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing this right. This is for me. And having that realization has actually helped me calm down and be less anxious about what I'm supposed to be doing. And like you said, one of the best ways to cure that feeling of inadequacy is look back to yourself 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, I was just drooling over owning real estate and building my real estate empire. And I wanted it so bad, and I just felt like I'd never have anything figured out. But now, if I were to tell myself 5 years ago that the me in this position with I've done 5 deals and I have 23 units, I would have thought I was a superhero rock star, and I would have been so jazzed about the 5-year future me.
Absolutely, man. Just keep celebrating your wins. When you're in this season of life where you're feeling uncomfortable, there's adversity just knocking at the door, there's this constant pressure pushing against you, it's really taking ownership of that, reframing the lens that you see that through and using it to your advantage. Like, that is where your growth is going to happen. And instead of fearing that discomfort, we should crave it. Like, we should move towards it. I've told you before, but I came from the military, specifically a special operations unit, and something that makes special operations in the U.S. military so fiercely exceptional, the U.S. military in general, is that we're trained to, as soon as there's gunfire, to move towards the sound of that gunfire, which is like anti everything that your human brain is screaming at you. Like, you should be running the opposite direction. And to like have that mindset shift of like, there's something scary and unknown over there. And rather than running away from it, we're going to face it right now and move towards it aggressively. That is where success comes from. And it's training yourself to start thinking that way. Even things like this podcast, like for me, recording this podcast seems very natural on the outside perspective. And you speak so well. But the truth is that both of us, before this episode is recorded, got jitters out, talked about our anxiousness, and it's not being defeated by that feeling. It's moving into it and letting it flood over us and being okay with that feeling and okay that we're going to continuously be uncomfortable, but that is where our growth is going to come from.
That is also one of the biggest learning lessons is you have to push into that uncomfort. I still don't want to run towards shooting guns. That doesn't sound like the kind of growth that I'm seeking out. but the concept is right. Doing the uncomfortable stuff is always where the growth happens.
I don't want to run towards shooting guns anymore either. I've grown into much more of a lover in my 30s. But dude, so you and I just got back from an epic get together. We spent about 3 days together in Mount Bachelor, Oregon. We were doing some snowboarding. The snow was super epic. We rented a couple luxury houses and just chilled in the hot tub and kind of pressed into each other, had some great shared conversations late into the evening about growth and marriage and business. And how did you like our getaway?
It sounds from the outside like, oh, you hang out with rich friends and talk about business and success, but this Go Abundance is so much more geared around a well-rounded life. And we talk a little bit about business and finances, but it goes so much deeper into just being better through relationships, giving back, your personal health, your problems. They're really unique things that you don't think a lot of grown men get together and talk about. And honestly, most of the time, grown men don't get together and talk about those things. And in this group, we do. And it gets deep fast. And it gets like real intimate when we actually sit down and those the one sheets where you get to talk about all your goals and problems and what you're working on. And you've got a room full of 20 successful guys spending 15 minutes just digging into yours. That is so uniquely valuable and gets you so connected and close. Walking out of there having that and knowing it's sincere and it's not, nobody's trying to sell you anything. It's just life-changing.
You know what's really unique about that group, and I've thought about this a few times before, is there's like a fraction of a percent of men who want to be challenged and pushed in that way. Go Abundance is an amazing group, but people that are in that room are there because they want to be there. There's buy-in. And they're looking to be challenged and pressed. They're looking to get uncomfortable. And you're right. Like most of what we talk about is not business. Now, are you going to grow in business as a leader, your net worth? Absolutely. It's impossible not to because you're in proximity of people who are crushing it, like the top of their fields and industries. But really, it's about self-development. It's about asking hard questions, peeling the layers back. It's kind of like this weird, I don't want to say counseling, but like open coaching forum. And what makes it so special is that everybody has buy-in. Like there's so much emotional equity in the bank account where if somebody gives you advice, you can hold on to it because you know that they're coming at you from a place of love. They want you to win. And what makes that room so special is everybody that shows up there is hoping that they get tore into and dug into and peeled back and exposed. And I think like that's the secret. Like right there, that's what makes it so unique.
I definitely didn't walk into the room wanting to get dug into. I like to keep my stuff bottled up. Then when you get in those kind of environments and you see the results that come from sharing your feelings and having people dig into you, then you go, okay, I want to share everything. Let's let this out. There's actually solutions out there. And these people are so willing to share the same that just now all of a sudden I just want to talk about my feelings and my bad days and problems because there's solutions in the room. And it's awesome.
On this note of Go Abundance and these mastermind meetups, you mentioned like, you have to have certain qualifications to get in this room. And this is where I want to just highlight how special you are and how unique you are is because you figured out a way to get into these rooms and provide value. And this theme is what led to you closing on a mobile home park deal that on your own could have never done. And it's all about like putting yourself in that proximity of people, taking action towards your goals and providing value. How did you end up in this room? How did you end up closing on a trailer park? Let's get everybody caught up to today.
This could take a while, but I'm happy to share the highlights of the journey because it's very important to these stories are kind of what separate people from thinking they can't get in these rooms and do these things to realizing that they can. Do the quick run back. I grew up in Alexandria, Minnesota. I had no idea what I wanted my future to look like. I went to college just to go try and figure out what I wanted to do. I had a career. I did all those things that we were supposed to do, and none of it felt right for me. I wanted to live my life on my own terms. And after I finished college, I did that. I just kind of winged it and started just traveling and exploring and lived the adventure life. Well, then I realized the adventure life is fun, but it's hard when you're poor. And I started to think, okay, how can I have more freedom in my life? Mixed with the fact that I've always loved entrepreneurship and business, but had no idea how to get into it or if I was even going to be any good at it. And I found Rich Dad, Poor Dad and got the mind mindset shift of how to get your money working for you or how to make money, or real estate is a big one in there. All of a sudden, I found out I love real estate and real estate investing. That became one of the few things I've kept interested in for a long time. And I decided like that's going to be my tool to freedom and living the life I want to live is real estate investing. And fortunately, the more I got into it, the more I learned, the more I fell in love with it. The biggest win to start the real estate success is when I just decided to start a business picking up dog poop for people, like going into their yards and picking up dog poop like a lawn care service. I'd come over once a week. I say that people think I was like a 9-year-old doing it. And for my neighbors, I was 27 with a college degree. And I was like, I'm going to go start a business picking up dog poop to learn business, to save a little money. And that's what happened. And
how many people do you think would have said no? I have a college degree. I am too good to pick up dog poop. You're a person who is opportunistic in the way that like you say yes if it's going to get you closer to the ultimate goal. How did that business even start?
I had this idea and I told my friend about it and was like, hey, I'm going to start a dog poop cleaning business. And she just pulled $50 out of her pocket right then and there. I was like, how long will this get me? And I was like, oh, dang, I got a client. This is going to happen. So I was like, I'm going to do this. I know this is going to work. I know I'm going to learn some stuff. I went out and looked at there's other dog poop cleaning services, and I looked at their pricing. And I was like, okay, what do other dog poop cleaning services charge? Is there anyone else around here doing it? Tried to estimate my time that's going to go into it and make sure it's worth it. And I just kind of broke down a pay scale, $12 per dog per week. And I'd come by every week, and they could do every week, every other week, once a month. I started reaching out to business leaders in my area to ask for business advice and how to create the entities and do all the legal stuff. And at first I was a little nervous, like, man, this is kind of going to get laughed at by like really successful people. And it's probably going to be looked down on, but I don't care. I'm going to do it because I know it's going to work, and it's going to get me in a step of building my real estate empire. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that the people doing stuff thought it was the coolest. And the people that weren't impressed by it or thought it was lame aren't doing as much.
How did you bring in your first employee? Like, how many employees did you end up hiring?
So I was doing my own route, and I was scribbling my schedule. I went out and found an app to make invoices so I could actually send people bills and keep it a little organized. And I still had everything just on a notepad. I got to about 30 consistent clients. Some would come and go, but once I got to 30 clients, it was like 8 hours a week of work. I decided to hire my friend Kelly, who was actually my first client, to do my bookkeeping. And I was like, I'm not doing good at this, sending out bills and organizing who's paid and like remind people to pay. Well, you do it. And I showed her how to do that. And that was a big time break when I had someone else doing the billing for me and just organizing it. I was like, cool, I don't have to worry about that at all anymore. Like, yeah, it costs a little money, but once you have that on your plate, you get to go focus on things that you love, like marketing and picking up dog poop. This stuff I'm passionate about. So once I found out you could hire someone, take this off your plate, yeah, it costs money, but you get to be, a little bit more working on your business and in the business. I was like, well, I want to hire somebody to actually do the route. Obviously, that's going to make me less money, but that's what I'd started this business for, was to learn business. So I'm going to hire someone to do it. I was able to pay him like $20 an hour, trained him on picking up dog poop. It's not a hard job to train. I just took him on the route, showed him how to communicate with clients. And then just for a couple months, I had someone doing the route, I had someone doing the billing, and I forgot that I had a business. Like, I didn't have to do anything. It just sort of happened. So I got to learn the power of, hiring or outsourcing, and the business just sort of ran itself.
The lessons that you learned in this company are flippin' massive. And how many people would say no to that opportunity because it's dog poop, because they're above it? And here you are saying yes. And that yes unlocked the path to what you're doing now. Sometimes life is about short term doing things that you maybe necessarily don't want to do to get you where you want to go. How did you sell the business?
I kind of just made up my own price. I learned a little bit how banks will evaluate it. They want some equity in it. This didn't have that. It just had some like regular customers. I ended up selling it to my first client and friend doing my bookkeeping because she saw the business and she was like, this is pretty cool. This is like efficient and works. I had a price in mind. We agreed on a lot lower price. I just wanted to get out of it, and I wanted the business to stay alive because a lot of clients in the area really liked it. So I did a way lower price had planned, and I just let her make payments to me. So she didn't have to get a loan or do any financing. And it worked out great. Two major events from that business. I saved my first $20,000 so I could put a down payment on my first house, and it's a beautiful house hack. It's a little house on the lake, and it's got a guest house with a big shop. I rented out the house and lived in the guest house, and renting out the house paid my whole mortgage. So I had like the perfect house hack made. The other major event that happened from the dog poop route was I met my now good friends and first business partners, Andy and Michelle. So Andy spotted me as someone who was willing to do stuff to make it happen. He owned an installation business, done a good handful of real estate projects. He reached out to me to say, let's spend time together. And I thought that was really cool. It's like, dude, you're way ahead of me. I don't know anything about like the success you're having, and you're going to hang out with the dog poop guy. Cool. Well, he brought the idea of building a house because he'd done a couple like spec builds where you build a new house and sell it. First time he asked me if I was like, hell no, I don't want to build a house. I can barely hang a shelf on the wall and I have no money. I spent all my money on my first house. And he told me how he finances it, which is buying the land cash. And then you get a hard money loan on the build. And I was like, well, I don't have money for the land, but like, what if we found someone else's money to buy the land? And I found the money for the land. My dad. I had no idea he had any money for it. I had to go tell people what I was doing. And then he goes, oh, I've got some that I can put into it. And that was the first time like money had been offered to me. We built the duplex. So I'd manage one side, and Andy has the contractor background. So he did most of the rehab, and we both worked together doing a little hands-on stuff. And then we sold it to split the profits 50-50. And what actually happened, they ended up buying it and keeping it. So they bought me out of it, and they kept it as like their own rental. And, I'll just be honest, I wanted to sell it and make money, but the market had shifted and it just wasn't a hot commodity. So we resorted to, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but like the next plan, backup plan. You run through best case, worst case, what you're going to do. We landed somewhere in the middle of, okay, well, they're going to buy me out and keep it. I actually wanted to keep the house. So I wanted to buy it out, but I didn't have the financing options to keep it myself. So they bought it and kept it and now have it as a great little rental with a ton of potential.
What did that look like?
It was so confusing. That was just like a lot of trying to figure out what it looks like. I mean, we compared the interest rates of what we were doing for the hard money loan and how you would borrow money from somebody to put it into a project. And there's just a lot of phone calls and conversations, but it turned into, he brought in the cash and we were just going to pay interest at the end of the project. So we didn't have to pay anything during it. Mm-hmm. We set an interest like 10%. And that was going to be added up over the time of it. And then when we sold the house, we'd pay him off and we'd pay off the hard money loan. And so, again, I had no idea what I was doing or how it was supposed to be done, but I trusted Andy in this process. You kind of trust your gut on who to work with and pull the trigger. And it turned into the greatest partnership I could ever ask for. Now we're really good friends. We've done several projects the same way together. And we've done most of them without any of our money because once we got an idea how it works, we went on and found another one. We're both like, man, we want to do a fix and flip. We found one. And at this point I'd had 2 projects in my background, kind of knew how the financing worked. And I had reached out to a friend, Alex and Tia, and they were friends that I met through the real estate networking game. They had just flipped a house and made like $400,000. And this house that we were buying was going to be $350,000 and needed about $50,000 to fix up. And I was like, well, we've got some cash and we've got some resources, hard money loans. We can go get it. But why don't we try our friends who we know are in the scene who have some cash and see if they want to get involved? And that just got so fun because that was me and my partners reaching out to some of our other friends who were involved. And I just asked them, I even went, so we got this project. We need $400,000 for it. I don't expect you to put money into it. If I were you, I wouldn't give us money to do it. You made a bunch of money on a big project.
It's a great salesman right there.
Yeah, dude, I'm not good at selling stuff. I'm just going to tell you the truth. So I asked him, like, it's $400,000 for the project. You could come in with as much or as little as you want, or none. We already have the financing figured out. And he called me back like 5 minutes later and goes, yeah, we'll fund it, all of it. And I was like, do you want us to come in with something down or like some leverage? He's like, nah, man, keep your cash to work on something else. Use mine for this.
When it was all said and done, you finished the flip. Like, how did that get split up?
So it was me and my Andy Michelle. We went 50-50. So me and them. And then Alex had lent us, Alex, Tia, and Lynn. I want to blast names when I get the chance. They went and funded the $400,000. And then we paid them, I think it was 10%, and we made interest payments to them through the project.
Deal one.
Yeah.
You go find money. You delay interest payments till the sale of the project. You sell the project, pay off the interest, get a split. Now you have a lump sum of cash. Deal number two, here you go again. Really no money out of your own pocket into this deal. Deal's completed. You sell it and you get a second split again without any of your money initially upfront in the deal. But Dillyn, this is impossible. How and why would people out there just give some random guy money to start investing in real estate?
That's what I thought too. I was like, who would give me money? I'm the guy picking up your dog poop and I've been bartending for 10 years. Who's going to give me $500,000 to work on these projects? Nobody would do that. Well, I was wrong. You had to go meet people. You have to be trustworthy. You have to build relationships. You have to tell people what you're doing, how you're doing it. Little track record's nice. But again, it doesn't have to be a real estate project. It can be that you were willing to pick up dog poop to get started. So any sort of track record's good. The biggest thing is relationship, getting to know people, doing what you want to do. None of these people, I thought when I met them, had any money or any ability to do this. I just knew we shared the same interest. And I never dreamt about being partners or doing something together, but I had no idea what it would look like or how it would work because we were all just a bunch of nobodies talking as far as I was concerned in the first introduction. Then you realize you share the passion, you trust each other, and then you find out that you've got different resources that can work together. And most importantly, we just like hanging out. So it wasn't even like, oh, you have resources I need. It's like, we have fun hanging out. Let's start talking about what can be done. And there's a big difference when you're daydreaming with people who are actually willing to do stuff than when you're daydreaming with people who just want to daydream, because the conversations become reality. It's not like, oh, I want to get into real estate. And then we just go back to drinking and watching TV. We actually say, well, we want to get into real estate. Let's talk about what we should do. And then you start pulling triggers, talking to lenders, looking at projects, walking properties.
You just closed on a mobile home park, right?
Yep. It's a 20-unit mobile home park out of state. It's going to cash flow a lot better than anything else I've had. It's going to have a lot more equity than anything else I've had, and it's going to have a lot less risk than any of the flip projects that I've had. And I got to do it with one of my real estate idols who I just like followed along on all his podcasts and interviews and shows and was like, this guy is my hero, a rock star. And now I get to be business partners and good friends with him.
Why mobile home parks? Like, how did this even start?
Mobile home parks kind of stood out as an interesting asset, but I remember listening to a mobile home park podcast a long time ago, thinking that would be a great asset to get into because recession resistance. It's one of the last affordable, housing options. They don't make a lot of them anymore. And then you own the land underneath it. Ideally, the tenants own their own house, so you don't have as much of a maintenance issue. And I just saw mobile home parks as a unique avenue to get financial freedom because it's not going to be so much flipping houses, making a couple bucks, paying a bunch of taxes. It's going to be a cash flowing asset that has value that you can do things with. So I've had a itch for mobile home parks. I wanted to learn them. And then through relationships, found more platforms to get educated and market and pull the trigger eventually. I found a free platform called 0to100tribe.com. And it's a platform where these guys teach people to scale their business. And they teach you to go from 0 to 100 units in 5 years is the concept. I remember sitting in a room with them and I was just in my head, I was like, yeah, I want single family and duplexes and maybe fix and flips. That's all I have access to. That's all I understand. And the first time I heard, it was like Travis just across the room. He wasn't even talking to me. He's like, don't buy a duplex, buy a 20-unit mobile home park. And he made it sound so easy that it clicked for the first time. On that platform, I went and met people doing like larger scale projects. Every week, I went to this virtual group and just sat there and learned how to analyze deals and just learning about larger multifamilies. And also through that platform, just regularly attending online real estate networking thing. They're all over. Anyone can do that. And then I went out and learned how to do some marketing. It's voice drop where a message goes right to their phone. It's me saying, hey, I see that you're on a park in this state. If you have interest in selling, call me. Then I got a blast of people calling back saying that they'd sell their park. And it wasn't so many agents as people who owned mobile home parks. And in 2 days, I talked to like 35 sellers. And I had no idea what we were supposed to talk about or how the conversation went. And I was nervous at first. I was like, I'm going to act like I'm going to buy your mobile home park, which I am in no position to do, but I'm going to go ahead and make the phone calls and have the conversations. And man, within 10 conversations, I could talk over people's heads. Like I think about 35 calls before I found one that made sense and it had the numbers that made sense. And I drove out and checked it out. It was like an 8-hour drive. And I was like, this one works. And at this point I had brought it to some people who also encouraged it. Like, yeah, that's a good deal. And then over the next couple of weeks, we just started talking about terms and how we can do this and what we're going to do. And through that process, I was talking to partners and asking them, like, how would you go about this? What's our financing options? Like, if we were to work together, what would that look like? Yeah, and that was kind of the journey of honing in on that park.
And boom, you closed. You closed on a 20-unit park. You closed with a friend and a mentor that you kind of idolized, a mentor that you looked up to, listened to on podcasts. Now this is your business partner. Everybody talks about you got to put yourself in the room. You got to put yourself in proximity, like get around people doing what you want to do. But dude, that's hard and it's scary. And I think that your story could be really inspirational to a lot of people who are sitting on the fence, not taking action because they just don't know where to start.
The Gabe Hamill story. I try not to kiss his ass too much in front of him. So I'll do it on this podcast and tell he can listen to it. So in my many hours of picking up dog poop, I've probably listened to 300 episodes of Bigger Pockets, and they're all just look like superheroes to me. And there was this one, and that was Gabe Hamill, who who's very successful real estate entrepreneur. He's done it all very organically. He had nothing special to start with. He didn't come from any money, or any experience, or any network. Didn't know this at the time. I just heard him tell a podcast about how he bought a bunch of deals under owner financing, which seemed cool to me, like not having money, that finding out that was an option. And at the end of all these podcasts, pretty much anywhere you like hear people talking big things, they'll usually give you some way to reach out to them. And so it has just said, yeah, my Instagram, reach out and say hi. I was like, well, I'm going to reach up to this guy. He just had a story that was so relatable. And after that podcast, and set up a Zoom meeting with everybody who had reached out to him. So we just did a Zoom call, and I don't even remember what we talked about. Like, we didn't go over any special skills or things the other person had that we wanted. It was just to say hello. At the end of it, I did what I encourage everyone to do, which is when you're reaching up to somebody, just ask them if there's anything they need help with or any kind of value you can provide to them. All he said was, no, just if you have, keep me in the loop with your wins. And I just thought that was cool. I was like, well, that's an easy ask. Side note, when you are reaching up to somebody to ask for advice, they give you advice, take it. If they tell you to read a book or they tell you to go join this group, take their advice, because that's how they're going to want to work with you again. If you show that you're actually going to do the things that they are suggesting, that's a big difference maker when you're trying to reach up to a new network, because they're happy to help you if you're happy to put in the time to be helped. We didn't talk for months after that until I had another win. I think it was when I did my first build. I was like, hey man, we haven't talked, but you said to keep you in the loop with your wins. I'm building a house. And then I texted him a couple months later. I was like, hey, I did a rehab project. After I sold my first property and made a good chunk of change, it was like 70 grand, so maybe 50 after taxes. I quit my bartending job and I was like, I'm just going to jump into this real estate thing and see if I could make it work. So I texted him and I was like, hey, just another win. I quit my job and I'm jumping into real estate. And at some point he ended up messaging me back just to see what was up. And I was like, well, that's cool. This guy's checking on me before I say hello. Becoming a fan of his, he was doing a lot of just different social media interviews or live meetings. And I'd just go attend them because I was like, well, I like the guy. I know him a little bit. I'm going to come to some of his live interaction meetings. It's always great advice. So yeah, I want to take it and see it. And then at this point, we had recognized each other. He knew me, and he was hosting his first mastermind group, which I didn't even know what it was. Probably like 8 of us to join his 8-week, once a week, hour virtual meeting mastermind group for $500. And I was like, this guy is offering to spend an hour with a small group for $500, no questions asked. I was like, yes, I will pay $500 to get some more time with you and people that if you're choosing the people that are going to be in this group, I can assume that they're the right people to meet. At the end of his mastermind group, he was doing a local GoBundance meetup. And my only understanding was it was 15 millionaires getting together to go on a snowboarding trip and talk about business. And I was scared as shit. I was like, that circle sounds terrifying to me. I don't have anything in common with them. But he presents the opportunity. That was just another, like, you're going to have to pull the trigger and go, even though you're uncomfortable and don't know any of them or have any idea what this is. You're just going to have to show up at that. again, not shy to admit, I was just nervous. When you like idolize a kind of group of people or people doing what you want to do, like you're going to be nervous reaching into these higher level circles. But I went anyways. And within about 10 minutes of being in this room of 15 strangers, it was instantly the most welcoming circle. And I felt more at home there than I do in most places because there was such a non-judgmental, sharing a similarity, wanting to meet people, doing things. And as much as I thought I was just going to be sitting there asking questions like, oh, how do you do this and that? And I thought I was just going to be this like puppy dog running around asking questions and listening, being by far the lowest performer financially. They were just as interested in what I had going on as what they had going on. So after, spending some time with the GoBundance crew, a little time with Gabe, knowing what he was doing, where he was working, I found this park in Burns, Oregon, and our mutual friends on that 0 to 100 platform reminded me that Gabe owns a park in Burns. So I just called Gabe with this park just to ask him how he liked his RV park in Burns. I was like, hey man, I heard that you've got some property in Burns. I just want to know what you think of like that location. I'm looking at this park. I didn't even ask him if you want to check out the deal. But fortunately, he was like, yeah, I really like my park there. It's an RV style. Send me over the deal. I'll check it out. And so I just sent it to him. He glanced at it, called me back. He's like, this is a pretty good deal. Let me know if you need some partnership or if you need any money with it. And I was just like, absolutely. I didn't say that. I tried to be cool, but yeah, man, maybe I'll let you in on it. We'll see. But he said he'd be willing to partner. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Honestly, I had gained enough knowledge and people that I probably could have found a way to close this park with different resources, but I just wanted to do it with Gabe. Like I was like, he's been so good to me. I'd love to bring him of something value, and I couldn't imagine learning from someone better. So I was absolutely thrilled that he wanted to partner with it on me. And he's kind of a sucker. I would have done it for like 1% ownership, and he gave me 50%. So he went 50.
Hey, listen, man, you have value, Dillyn. You have value, and I think it's really important. And Gabe sees the value in you, and so does everybody else. I want to read a short excerpt out of the book, Who Not How, because I think this speaks to like this exact situation. Some Ivy League school did this study of like 3 levels of actualization and relationships, especially like in business. This is what it sums up as. So you have level 1, which is the socializing self, which is a person that operates out of fear, anxiety, and dependence. You don't make your own decisions. You don't have your own goals. Instead, you're simply trying to be accepted by your peers and will do anything you can do to conform to them. That's level 1. Level 2 is the authoring self, which is when you've gone from unhealthily dependent to a much more healthy independence. You deployed your own sense of self. You have a worldview, goals, and agenda. However, you have a perceptual filter that you cannot see beyond. Everything you do is to conform your bias and achieve your narrow goals. But then you have the transforming self. The transforming self is different from the authoring self in that rather than being individualistic and competitive, it's more rational and collaborative. When at this higher level, you engage in collaborative relationships for the sake of transformation. All parties have their own perspectives, beliefs, and agendas, yet they come together for the purpose of having their own views and even their own identities and sense of self expand. The whole becomes anew and greater than the sum of all parts. And here's where it gets really interesting. In order to engage in transformational relationships, each of the involved parties must be psychologically evolved to a transforming self level. Keegan, which is the scholar that did this study, says that this psychological level is achieved by less than 10% of all individuals or organizations. Transformational relationships, as opposed to transactional ones, are entered into for the purpose of change and growth. In transformational relationships, all parties give more than they take. This is where explosive, exponential growth comes from. And think about that. Think about the rarity. Think about the gift that you have. Less than 10%. This is the rarity. This is letting go of control. It's about trust. It's about pouring into people. It's about proximity. It's about taking action. It's about self-belief and just continuing to push, to push, to push. When you think you don't have any value, when you think you're not good enough, it's about this self-belief, proximity to people doing what you want to do, and a continuous forward effort. Every day, move your feet. Absolutely, first and foremost, pray, but pray with your feet moving. And I think that's just the most important lesson here about getting to the next level. And you, Dillyn, you are the shining star example of how people should be living their life, taking action, giving. I am just so lucky to have you here on the show and have you as a friend. Side note, I have a meetup in Tacoma called Pints and Properties, and I'll do a little early announcement here. Dillyn has agreed to be the keynote speaker for our February Pints and Properties meetup, and he's going to show us all about how to analyze mobile home parks, how to run the numbers, and I'm stoked to have him in person. So if you want to find out more about Dillyn, come show up at our Pints and Properties meetup where he'll be the keynote. You can connect with him, shake his hand, learn what he's doing to get to the next level.
That breakdown of me was very nice. I don't see it that cool as you made it sound. I'm just sort of living life and trying to learn and grow these things, but your description makes it sound way cooler. So thank you for that. And I do just want to point out that kind of skill of reaching out and making moves. It's not natural. It doesn't have to be. I don't know that it ever is. Some people that know me assume it's easy because I have a pretty outgoing personality. I'm good at talking to people, but I've been very nervous and unsure, as I was willing to admit in this conversation, on all of these moves I've made. They made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to do it. Yeah, they made me sound like they match my skills, and I'm sure that helps a little bit. But inside, I was scared of all of it. And so for everybody that wants to do these things and reach out and change and meet new people, I promise you can do it. You don't have to be a super social butterfly. You just have to be willing to get uncomfortable. Keep it organic. Don't ask for anything. You don't need anything from anyone except to be around them. You only have to be in the room and hear the conversations and watch these dreams become a reality.
Yeah. And give more than you receive.
I'd say that's the most important part. And I don't know, I haven't structured it in a way where I'm giving or asking anything other than to share enthusiasm and teach and learn from each other.
And you're doing it, man. That's the whole point of this podcast, is just showing people what it looks like to fail forward, to persevere, to endure, to eliminate your doubts, your limiting beliefs, your limitations to get to the next level. And that's exactly what we're showing here on this journey. And that is why I'm just so happy that you showed up today on this show. So guys, I look forward to seeing everybody at Pints and Properties. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. And if you want to get in touch with Dillyn, come hang out with us in Tacoma in February. I'll be releasing the dates soon. Stay tuned. We both look forward to seeing you there. And with that, I'm here to help you grow and win in every market cycle and get to the next level. Catch you next week.